Here's some real secret space program photos. A guy contacted me in 2011. He was putting together these
Oh, I
ships.
know what that is. That's that image there you just clicked on.
This one here?
Purple. Yeah, that's the nuclear fusion program donut tokamak. It's a tokamak design, but it's now called ITER, which is in the international.
This is inside a space station here. This is a spaceship called the USS Los Angeles. He,
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I'll show
It
you
looks
the
like a nuclear fusion chamber is what it looks like.
right. Well, that's exactly it's a fusion
But
engine. This
remember,
is
in
the
Star Trek, it's an antimatter drive that Scotty's
right.
running. It's a fusion antimatter generator that propels the USS Enterprise around the.
Maybe we should. All right, here's the MHD, the magnetic hyperdrive. They had a lot of crashes of this one. They were pretty. The crashes were
Wait,
pretty
can you tell us where these
spectacular.
pictures are coming from? Are they?
This was from a HARP station in Alaska. This is what they were doing here. They were opening up. This is a government EMP.
Well, go back to HARP because I researched some years ago on Google Earth, and north of HARP, in Nome, Alaska, the Nome, Alaska region,
Uh-huh.
which is where the movie The Fourth Kind story comes from. There, I found on Google Earth massive coils off a logging road. You could clearly see they were coil
Wow.
structures, um, and way bigger than HARP, like way beyond HARP.
Yeah, the HARP ones he gave me they're kind of dispersed throughout here, but uh so he actually works on the ship and so this is a spaceship here. Again, that's a fusion core. Uh
That looks like a fusion core to me. Yeah.
yeah, so let me show you the HARP ones. They're pretty interesting, but I wanted to share the so yeah, that's a spaceship
Wait,
core.
click on that one again. Click on that one again.
Yeah.
That's a little different than the other one.
Yeah, they've got a bunch of them. So let's see. Trying to get it to open up. Come on, open up, mister.
So these are these government funded or private?
Oh, this is secret space program. This is
I know
unknown.
exactly. Like if you look at that, okay, just stop there for a second because the tone of that metal looks like tungsten to me, and tungsten is the most non-permeable, meaning you can trap magnetic fields in it without it getting away. So if I make a container to contain my anti-gravity drive, I need a container that's non-permeable, meaning that my radiation won't escape through the wall. And actually tungsten and titanium work the best. And I know my metals, I know them by tone and hue. And
Mhm.
and so what happens is with a lot of these drives try to create a density for their fusion energy or their to make or contain plasma. Plasma energy will get away through the wall, meaning it'll lose all of its energy through the wall unless you use the right materials.
Wow.
And that looks like a tungsten alloy, meaning it has other metals mixed together in it, and it might even contain some silica. So you have to create your wall out of the correct layering of materials, or you won't trap. So you see how there's a gap in the middle here. So you have, just like my coil behind me, my cubes, it's counter rotational.
Right. Fred
And
said they had a caduceus coil.
yeah,
It's
Fred's were a
one
counter
coming down,
rotation.
one coming up, and they neutralize each other.
That's how
And he's
you create a scalar. That's how Tesla created scalar. So Fred was onto it. This, if they're doing this in here, the coils would be behind the
well, we're gonna have
membrane.
to do this in the interview too. But so you notice like because the like the butterfly man is actually the human aura. If you look at it from the front, we're actually a toroid, right? But if you
Well, yeah, that's a torus, right?
yeah,
So that's an inverted torus. So that's it's instead of the outside, we're looking inside the torus.
it's amazing. And Fred said that when they did the time travel there, what they had to do was they had to this is what happened at Philadelphia experiment. They were what's his name? Tesla and Einstein said, don't do it. And von Neumann went ahead. He said, because the magnetic fields, I think they're using was it a cyclotron or something, but in their Philadelphia experiment. And what they did was they had to, um, yeah, let me go back and let me just show you this. What they did
Can you
was,
show me Fred? Fred, you were going to show me Fred
yeah,
Bell's.
yeah, I want to show you that. So I'm gonna, I gotta get out of this. Where's my,
Because Fred was a genius.
yeah, it's a great thing. Yeah, yeah, I'd like to talk about that a little bit today. So I need to, I was in edit, sorry. So I wanted to show you a couple things here, and then we can go into it. So here's see the Navy. So what happened was is they crashed one of the ships. It comes out of S4. I have photographs. Here's a Philadelphia experiment, the black sun that they created when they opened up the portal on board the ship here. And of course, shortly after that, the
Oh,
bodies got
cool.
merged with the hull. And so here's a HARP. I also wanted to show you. So all of these, this is a HARP array system. And this is a secret base, probably maybe where you're talking. And here's the guys that working in the HARP. And this is
Yeah,
what
the one I'm talking is north of Nome, Alaska.
there
Nome.
probably was a bunch of them. So we can go through. I think this would be a great interview to hear you just talk about this. But so here, check this out. So what happened was the ship crashed and the Navy goes, uh-oh, we got to go get it. That's near the Russians. So they're going up there like big time. They don't want the Russians coming on American soil in Alaska, and they are going to protect that bad boy like nobody's business.
Oh yeah, they are. That's
So they get up there, and that one where those guys were climbing on the ladder, they are looking, and so they ejected the core. It melted in here. So they get there, they're looking down, and they're going, "Oh, well, what are we going to do with this thing?" And there's the scientists. They're all there, like, "Oh no, there's the ship," and you can see it just melted through the ice. Here's the military operation. All these guys sworn to secrecy, helicopters, full naval force out there. Oops, oh, there's a Philadelphia experiment. So yeah, so there's a Navy out there. There's a Philadelphia going invisible, in the green. So they had another crash in the water. This one here, this thing kept crashing. So they get the Navy SEALs down there, and they did float it. Some of these are mixed up. He sent them to me. This is some of the advanced technology in there. Where'd that go? So this is what they're doing with the HARP. They're opening up these portals here. These are portals. They're ripping holes in the ionosphere. You know, this is of course a space.
I know exactly what they're trying to do. It's not what most people think they're doing.
So this is another crash.
We
And
can't.
then,
Are you trying to show us something? We can't see anything.
I'm not. Oh, I'm not sharing.
Oh.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, we were just seeing you the whole time. Yeah.
So this is I don't know if that's a government base or an alien one, but I went to school with Buzz Aldrin's stepdaughter. This is
Oh,
a
wow.
picture. So
You know what? I met Buzz because Buzz was on the board of directors of my boss, Maglich's fusion company. He was one of our board of director members.
These are the portals I was showing you. This is HARP.
Yeah.
They're ripping holes up there into the Lord. They can't.
Yeah, those holes. Okay, so go back to the holes because I want to talk about that for a second.
Maybe we should do this in the interview.
Oh, aren't we videotaping right now?
I know, but I wanted to do an introduction and stuff. But I don't know. I guess we could just.
Well, it flows into part two of what we were talking about because I have a short presentation today too. But
okay,
because the antimatter, the membrane between matter and antimatter, try and see it as a membrane. And it's like we're underwater right now. I mean, I skydived from 30,000 feet. I trained at Edwards Air Force Base with all these pilots.
Wow.
And I'm in there in the pressure chamber doing the test. And some of the pilots are telling me that they're UFO stories. Okay, this is Edwards Air Force Base, which used to be Muroc Field, which is where, according to the George C. Marshall memorandum, the remains of the Battle of 42 UFO were taken to. They were not taken to right.
You mean Battle over Los Angeles?
Yeah, the Battle over Los Angeles, the George C. Marshall memorandum show they retrieved the craft and it went to Muroc Field, which became Edwards. So anyway,
Differing view on that. There may have been a craft.
well, there's a lot of remember, there's a lot of differing views out there. The thing about ufology is it's like this. And if we got everybody together and we shared data, we might see the bigger picture. But if we're myopic and we look at one point of view only, we may not see the bigger picture.
Right, I hear you.
So anyway,
okay.
I'm training to go to skydive from 30,000 Davis, California. And when you hit the lower atmosphere, because I reached 300 miles an hour and free, the faster you fall.
Right.
When you hit the lower atmosphere, it's like jumping into a lake. I'm wearing an oxygen tank. I got a helmet on, and boom, the turbulence just hits you like that, like you jumped into a lake. So there's strata layers that are like membranes. So there's a membrane between a negative electron spin and positive electron spin, proton positive, proton negative, etc., to all your subatomic particles. And that membrane, the experiments they're doing is they're trying to burn a hole through it. And where the first hole occurred was when we detonated the atomic bomb at Trinity, July 22nd, 1945. Remember, it's Roswell is only 2 years later, mid-July, that we actually, according to Boyd Bushman, shoot down the craft, and some of them so imagine a hole is burned in through the explosion due to the gammas, because gamma rays, guess what they do? They give birth to antimatter. We know this.
Yeah.
So the gamma part of the nuclear explosion was strong enough to rip a hole into the antimatter universe, because that's what gamma radiation does. That's how you generate antimatter. And then that hole is slowly closing. So during the explosion at Trinity, we opened the hole, and over time, if you read the FBI files throughout from 1945 to 1948, you'll see our military was chasing these flying saucers all over the country. But the hole is closing, and the ETs know they only have so much time to get back through to the other side of the universe. And so they all reconvene back towards Roswell, and that's where, according to Bushman at Lockheed, I got him on camera saying this, we used the Tesla death ray, which was developed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That's where the death ray was developed, according to the FBI Tesla files.
Mm-hmm.
So we shoot them down, but some of them get back through the hole. And so some of them are left on our side of the opposite end of the antimatter universe, and some of them go to the other side. So the purpose of burning holes at high intensity energies is to open a hole so they can go back and forth.
Right. Well, I can tell you the antimatter universe, according to other sources, and this is a little deeper off subject here, but there's some negative stuff. So I want to talk about the Battle of Los Angeles, because I was very close with Fred Bell in the Pleiadian context, was with a woman named Semyasi. Billy Meyer kind of claimed, no one has a contact but me, but I've read his notes. Wendell Stevens, who I took to Egypt in 1991, and I was close with him, wrote this book, UFO Contact from the Pleiades.
I can't see that because
I know I better take off my background, but it's a UFO Contact from the Pleiades.
Oh yeah, I know that book. Yeah, they're re-releasing that. That's getting re-released.
We can't see it.
There it is. So I have, you can't really see it here, but I have copy 002. Wendell gave it to me before
you got 002. Oh my God.
Billy Meyer has number 1. So Billy Meyer, or Wendell, was sending me contact notes, and Fred, he goes, it was in a letter. We didn't even have email then. So it was in a letter, and I'd open up these mimeograph sheets with Billy Meyer's contact notes. And I just had this page open here that I wanted to show you, was this, the Battle of Los Angeles. And here's Jim Delatoso doing.
Oh, I know, Jim.
Right.
Jim and I have had the best conversation about the Meyer incident
Yeah,
because Meyer sent me the super high res images of all the craft. I have them in super high res, and I studied them. And Jim and I got into it because Jim is an effects master.
Yeah,
And we both know the real secret of the Meyer photographs. There's nobody's ever done this.
Well,
But
tell
we
me.
have to do that another time because I'd have to pull those images up and show people.
Okay, so what I want to do real quick here is I do want to um, go into something here. I'm just gonna
Is Jim still alive?
I think he is. I spoke to him some time ago, but I've been trying to get him. I'd love for him to come to my conference, or he came. So let me tell you a story about Fred and Jim. So Jim comes by the house with Fred, and we're up all night. We're playing music, and Fred had an incredible array. He was using the sound of the spaceship and deconstructing it and wrap around and enhancing it, and he used it in his music. So, but first, let me show you this. We talked about the Battle of Los Angeles. So you see this ship up here?
Oh yeah, I know it well.
Okay, this is a time travel ship. So if you look carefully at those Klieg lights, this was a Pleiadian ship, but
Right.
this was not created until later. She says, I'm getting a new ship. So the Battle of Los Angeles was, I don't know if it was Semyasi's ship, but it was a Pleiadian beam ship going back in the past. They may have taken down another type of ship. So that's a very interesting thing. And this Battle of Los Angeles, according to William Tompkins, was around the time that he was seeing some spaceships that they were, of course, looking at as carefully because of the nuclear bombs and experiments and stuff. So one of the other things I wanted to mention in what you were saying there was, so if they captured a ship, that's one thing. Now I know that Fred told me that the reason the gray ships, and they were already here. Some of them come from inside the Earth. They were part of the ones that were
Right. Yeah, I believe there's bases all over the earth, the mountains and the sea.
all over.
They maintain a base. You know where the balloons were spotted a few years ago, and they're going right next to me. They went right over northern Idaho into Montana, right over here. And there's bases here because remember, Roswell begins in Idaho. United Airlines pilot sees the UFOs out his window. Ken Arnold in June sees them. Then they're over Portland, Oregon. They made the paper in Portland. There were 8 UFOs photographed, made headlines in the newspaper. So they were moving around, but they started in Idaho, and just north of Idaho are the Kootenai Range Mountains,
Yeah.
where they maintain a base, and that's where the balloons went over. They weren't looking for the nuclear bases. They already know where those are.
Yeah. The government, like I said, they know everything where they're at. The government is deeply involved with the bad guys, and they've been fighting the good guys. Kenneth Arnold, the good guys, they went from Mount Rainier to Mount Arnold, where James Gilland is at. So this is fascinating. So we're going to take a break right now, folks, just for a moment. Okay, start section 2. So I'm going to quickly, I guess I had this up. Sorry about that. Okay, so hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Victory of Light radio show. I'm in another amazing interview with David Sereda, my Mount Shasta Summer Conference. We're going to be talking about his technology, my technology today. We started, and we just have like a simpatico thing. We just started talking about some stuff here that I was going to talk about beforehand. So Sherad's going to edit it.
It's still
and bring us back.
Sereda.
I trained myself before to say Sereda, and then I just got trained. It's supposed to be Sereda. So I apologize. It's a Hungarian name. I apologize a million times to David for this faux pas again. I've just been saying it.
And I'm not Hungarian. I'm Palladian.
He's Palladian. Okay. So we have an amazing show for you today, and God knows we may get to do another one, but I opened up my secret space program, so let's cut to that. Okay, and then so now you're going to cut back, and we're here. So now we're talking about the Pleiadian information here, and we talked about that. So we're going to share. I'm going to share David's website a little bit, and he has a little presentation for us. But we're going to get back to where we started our conversation. We were talking about some photographs of the secret space program, of the HARP program. David was educating me in some fascinating information. And then I'm also going to be, while he's in his presentation today, I may ask some questions. I'm probably just going to let him go and make notes. But we're going to go into Fred Bell's technology. And David and I spoke privately after the first interview, which was really good, folks. And we were really thinking if we could get the scientists together, David, Daniel Winter, um, Matthew Reif, and even David Adair, and focusing on some more of the advanced healing and get these minds together. Let's put aside the patents and the proprietary and the money information. I believe money will be made available through the Global Restoration Plan very soon and research centers. And I'm going to be putting David, I've already put David Adair in, Richard Allen Miller. I haven't approached my other scientist contactees, but and contactees people, but David is open to, if the money's available, he can create technologies and make this available to the public. So we talked about that. So I'm going to hand it over to David. He's going to give us a wonderful presentation today, and we're going to go forward a little bit depending on his time. And we're going to get into some very interesting stuff on secret space program. He was telling me about plasma engines and all kinds of stuff that you just heard. So we're going to get back to that in a little bit.
Okay, so I kind of first wanted to continue where we left off in part
Okay.
one about Venus.
All right, let's do that.
And
You can-
about where, okay, so we're talking about the membrane that is between the negative electron spin universe and the positronic universe. And the technology, the ET technology, relies on this model that my wife gave me after she died. And the way she gave this model to me is so incredible, because what she does is she calls out my name audibly 591 days after she died. And of
Wow.
course, 591 divided by the golden ratio, 1.618033987 to perfection, is the exact sidereal timekeeping for Earth. Divided by the golden ratio again is Venus. Divided by the golden ratio is planet, what we call planet 139.51, which lines up with the miracle of the Son of Fatima. And it lines up with Jesus' Ascension Day and actually the celebrated birthday of the Buddha. And then we divide by the golden ratio again.
And Fred's death day.
And oh yeah, what was Fred's death day? What was that?
Yeah, remember we looked it up and you said it's 98.8 something connected. We did that the last show.
Well, I think Fred was Mercury. So
Well, you said he was here.
Well, Robert was
based on his death.
okay. Shroz, can you pull up Fred Bell's
birthday.
death day?
I
So
think
we
it was
can do that?
September.
It
So watch what I'm gonna.
It was
We did that the
September.
last show.
Yeah, we
Mine-
did it on the last show. It was September.
So
something.
basically, but yeah, we'll get back to Fred in a second. So if we take 591 times the golden ratio, we get the and you just keep repeating the golden ratio pattern, we get an ascension planet of an orbital period of 956 days. Then we get the dwarf planet Ceres. Then we do it again, and we get a planet with 2,503 Earth days per year orbit around the sun. Then we get Jupiter. Then we get another planet of 6,554 days. Then we get Saturn. You see, it's going above the other side of the membrane and below, above, below, above, below, above, below, all the way out to Neptune. And of course, I've taken this.
September 25th, 2011.
Oh, it's September 25th. No, you're not going to believe what that means because I know more about. That's when Fred died.
Yeah.
Okay, it's way bigger than you think. It's way bigger than you think. So, what happens is with this algorithm, first of all, it was previously known that Earth to Venus was 1 to the golden ratio. That was known. In fact, Dan Winter was someone who confirmed that. But what Dan doesn't know, without this number of 591 days, you can't decode the entire solar system and all the antimatter planets. We'll call it the firmament. I don't necessarily know that it's the firmament, but there is a membrane which separates matter from antimatter. Now, it's clear in this algorithm. What I'm going to show you now is so stunning. So I have to give people a brief history of timekeeping. So bear with me on this.
It's amazing, folks. David's, interesting. Here we go.
The accuracy of what my wife did is so stunning, and you're really going to see it here. Archaeologists may have found evidence of the very first lunar calendars in a cave throughout Europe dating back 32,000 BC. So that's before the last ice age, way before, right? So the lunar calendar has 12 lunar months of 29 and a half days, but it falls short of a solar year, meaning Earth going around the sun one time by 11 and a quarter days per year. So compared to the way we keep time today, it's not accurate enough. But some people argue that it is. Then we go to Julian calendar from 46 BC onwards. And in this calendar is a solar calendar that basically calculates that it takes Earth 65 and a quarter days to orbit the sun. So you have to still have a leap year. Incidentally, we're in a leap year right now. There's 29 days in February. So we got 2 more days. Next year, we'll go back to 28. But when the Gregorian calendar was put into use after Pope Gregory the 13th in 1582 detected the error in the calculations with his astronomers, right? The Julian calendar date, Thursday, October 4th, in the new calendar becomes Friday, the 15th of October, right? Which is, so that year we had to absorb about, our missing 10 days. Because of the discrepancy of timekeeping. You'll see why this is important. Because October 15th is the middle of October, and the miracle of the sun at Fatima occurs on the 13th of October in 1917, 335 years later. So the question is, does Pope Gregory the 13th know a secret about my hidden planet 139? Because there's a reason for it, I'm telling you. Remember last week we showed you that Venus is the portal to planet 139, right?
That's right.
And it's the portal, because if you take 365.256 days per year in a sidereal year, minus Venus's orbit, you'll get 139 days, which is the orbit of this mysterious planet. So what happens is, I actually had my first apparition of Christ, which I described last time, also mid-October. So you're going to keep seeing this mid-October date over and over and over again. And I'm going to show you why. So why the same time marker as Fatima? What secret did Pope Gregory know about the hidden heavenly sphere in 1582? The question arises because 33 years prior to the great miracle of the sun at Fatima, on October 13th, 1884, now this is a different pope, Pope Leo the 13th has a remarkable vision when he's approaching the altar of a dialogue he audibly hears between Christ and Lucifer, Satan, where Satan is telling Jesus what's actually going to happen in the future of humanity. In this battle.
What did Jesus say?
Now remember, in the book of Isaiah, Lucifer is cast down from the morning star to the earth, which is Venus. So there has to be a portal there. So watch where this goes.
The morning star, as I told you before, was the planet that blew up called Maldak. That's the asteroid belt, the Kuiper belt, and the Oort cloud.
Well, exactly right. So because
Not the
we're missing planets. So 33 years after the actual event occurred on Fatima, Pope Pius XII claimed to have witnessed the miracle of the sun. This is a different Pope. Now we're at Pope Pius II on October 30th at 4 p.m. walking in the Vatican gardens. And in his notes, he writes, listen to the details, because the miracle of the sun at Fatima, and I should show this in a graphic in a minute. I'll actually show this in a graphic in a minute. The papal note reads, the 4 p.m. October 30th. Notice we're at October 30th now. During his habitual walk in the Vatican gardens, reading and studying, having arrived to the statue of Our Lady of Lourdes, toward the top of the hill, I was awestruck by a phenomenon that I had never seen before. The sun, which is still quite high, looked like a pale, opaque sphere entirely surrounded by a luminous circle. Now that's again what happens in an annular eclipse. The problem is on October 30th, 1950, there was no annular eclipse of the sun or eclipse at all. In fact, there was an eclipse that year, which I have bookmarked here. Can you see this? Solar
yeah,
eclipse?
I can see that. Yeah, it's great.
You see, so he's experiencing it over in Rome, but actually, which is way over here, but the actual eclipse that year is so far north of him, he wouldn't have seen anything, right? So remember, let me go back to I'm going to show you my calculator in a second, just so your people are really clear on this recap, because where this is going is stunning between Venus and the what I'll call the antimatter ascension planets. So let me show you my calculator again so people see this and you understand the accuracy of this. Message coming from the other side is no joke. So you take 591 days after my wife died, divided by 1.618, which is the golden ratio, 0.339887. One time is exact Earth keeping time today. The next is Venus accurate to 98%, 98%. And planet 13951 between Venus, and again, I get Mercury. So that's Mercury is accurate to 97%, by the way. So now let me come back to my document because I'm going to continue here. This won't take long. Once people don't even understand how we keep time today. And when you see this, you're really going to get it. So what happens is if I take the start of my solar year, and you'll understand why the start of the solar year oscillates between January 6th, 7th, and December 22nd to 25th every single year. Because of the lunar cycle, you're going to see this, our start date to the solar year jumps, and it migrates like in a sine wave back and forth. So January 7th to the Pope's vision in 1950 is 296 days into the year, and you take the two orbits of planet 1395951 is 94.25% accurate. That's high accuracy, right? So today, our timekeeping is beyond even Gregorian. So we have a tropical year. The tropical year is the period of time for the ecliptic longitude of the sun to increase by 360 degrees. Since the sun's ecliptic longitude is measured with respect to the equinox, the tropical year comprises of a complete cycle of the seasons. So the tropical year is seasonal. So its accuracy is 365.24219 days. But using the alignment of the fixed stars, the sidereal year, taking exactly 365.256363004 sidereal days for Earth to rotate around the sun. That means we are off by 0.006363004 days per year. Using a leap year every 4 years to absorb a quarter days per year in our current calendar, that means every 200 years, Earth will be out another day and a quarter. So that just tells you how precise we are now. Now watch where this goes. Sidereal time is 0.01417 304 days per year more than the tropical year. You see how close they are? They're a hair's breadth away. We get right down to the minutes. Why does precision matter? Because if you want to know the mystery to where the heaven planets are, you have to be precise. If Earth moved into an ideal Kepler orbit, perfect ellipse with the sun fixed at one focus, each kind of year would always have the same duration, and the sidereal and anomalistic years would be equal. Because of perturbations by gravity of the other planets, Earth's motions vary slightly, causing the sidereal and tropical years to vary in length by about 25 minutes. Both are affected in the same way, so that the sidereal year is consistently 20 minutes longer than the tropical year. Now we use atomic time, so we're getting even more accurate. And guess why? They don't know what is causing these tugs and pushes on the planets. And I've read this. I've read deep physics papers on this. There must be a planetary bodies doing this, but they don't know what it is. And just this past year, this is brand new news, and this is all over the news. It's on Reuters, it's on the BBC. Physicists did experiments to see if antimatter was affected by gravity the way Einstein said it would be, and it turns out it is. Why does that matter? Because a theoretical invisible antimatter planet would still be maintained in its orbit around the sun's gravity. That's why that matters. So using atomic time measured with a cesium oscillator, you see that in 2007, we had to add 10.51 minutes. And in 2008, you had to take away 11.86 minutes. In 2009, 15.91 minutes. Those perturbations that are causing those deviations are coming from somewhere, planetary bodies that they don't know of. So an example of a year that will have a duration exceeding the average value of 365.24219 tropical years with as much as 24.23 minutes. I mean, that's considerable, right? Is one that will begin a winter solstice December 21st, 2042, atomic time. No one knows exactly what causes these gravitational pushes on the Earth and the other planets. Astrophysicists just have theories. Could there be other hidden planetary bodies made of invisible antimatter in our solar system? I'm almost done here. I'm almost done. And then we can go into the questions. As I was drifting off to sleep in Banff, Alberta, Canada during our family spring break vacation with Allure and Astari on March 23rd, 2023. So this was just a year ago, right? Just about a year ago. 591 days after her death, between August 9th, 2021, Crystal's voice, my wife, rang out loud and clear at 9:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Her voice was the most clear I've ever heard it. Now that we understand the calendars and history of timekeeping to date, the precision of what Crystal has done becomes crystal clear. 591 divided by the golden ratio equals 365.258087362451214 days. That is the precise sidereal most accurate time for 1 year on Earth to an accuracy of our timekeeping to sidereal days of 99.9995%. Like that's incredible. They couldn't keep time that accurate in the lunar calendars 10,000 years ago. The Julian calendar couldn't do this. So the question is, again, if we take 591 divided by the golden ratio once, we get the exact sidereal time for Earth, and divided by it again, we get Venus's orbit accurate to 99.538%. Divided by the golden ratio again, we get the planet 139, the miracle of the sun at Fatima, and Jesus's ascension date, etc., all line up. Also Yom Kippur, and then divided by the golden ratio, we get Mercury. So the point is, it gets more interesting. I won't go into the next part yet.
Okay, I do appreciate.
You understand how accurate this is? It's precise. It's razor blade precise.
This is amazing. So we see the sacred geometry. I want to tell you a little bit about a couple things here. One, when Raymond Keller went to Venus, he went on December 20th, 2012, and he
2020
was there
what? 20, December 20 what?
December 21st, 2012.
Okay, that's perfect because that's the beginning of a solar year. Again, will oscillate between the 21st, which is winter solstice, 21st, 22nd. Because on our planet, we get 2 dates on any given date. Half the planet will be in one date, half the planet the other. And then it'll jump to January 7th as a start date. And January 6th and 7th was when the earliest Christians celebrated Christmas, the new sun.
So what this meant was December 21st, the Mayan calendar, which is based on the Venusian calendar, the solar year. Raymond explained to me a couple things. When he got there, they had a celebration, which was the ascension of the then Queen of Venus. And the queens are chosen by not their genetic heritage or an inbred type situation, but by their lifetimes of service on Earth and Venus. That queen was a Chinese saint named Lady Mazu, who calmed the Jade Ocean, which means that she was a young girl of about 12 doing sewing, and her father was in a storm, and she etherically projected her double, and she was picking up her brother. She could not pick up her father or one of her brothers. And there was another saint that came down and picked her up. Her mother shook her, broke the connection. And then years later, her and her younger brother went to this woman's shrine to pay obligations. And she appeared in there and said, your sister's coming to heaven, and she ascended to Venus, at which point, at some point, she became the queen. Now, Lord Dismas, the accidental apostle, was the regent of Venus, is placed in guardianship over Venus by Jesus Christ himself, and they did a celebration, a holographic projection of her life. She got into this lotus flower, which explains the Buddhas in Tibet, floating in the sky, and she ascended it. And Lord Dismas announced that the Queen of Venus in this giant stadium of 100,000 people was sitting right next to Raymond. So what he told me, when the first thing that he noticed in the stadium was there were some holes in the roof, and they had 13 holes, and there was they had what's called the Venusians had been hybridized. They're actually from Tau Ceti. They're called the Norcans, and they were hybridized by the Aldebarans and the Pleiadians 18 million years ago, and what's called the Syrian shift, and they eventually got their genetics back. I think I mentioned the last time. So he said through the roof came in 13 angels with huge wings, and as they descended, they lost their wings, and they sat in 13 seats to witness this event. And I said, why 13? And he said, because the Venusians, and maybe you can mention this, he said there's another constellation that they consider one of the, we only have 12, but they, in the zodiac, but they consider, I think it's called Herectus, the healer, as one of them. And of course, the moon calendar was taken away because it was revolving around the women, and they wanted to take the power away from the women and the pharmaceutical healing and all that. So Raymond also mentioned what you mentioned, that there are perturbations, and he said there is a cloaked moon around Venus. It's completely cloaked, and some scientists have been noticing some differences there where it's cloaked. So again, we come back to my question for you. Do you think, Raymond said there's 60 planets, do you think that what you call the firmament is a frequency? I believe, I don't know if it's the antimatter universe for sure, but I would say the Queen of Venus says that we're blocked by the veil, and the veil is the speed of light and the entropic physical decaying universe. When a world becomes celestialized or ascends to what we could call the fifth dimension, or maybe even higher, there may be different frequencies and densities. Do you think that if we were able to see higher, do you think it's strictly an antimatter, or do you think it's just another frequency? Maybe it's the astral, and if we're on the astral, maybe we would be able to see invisible to us what would be called the mental plane, or the various get up to the causal plane. What's your thoughts on that?
share screen to answer this. So
Go ahead.
share screen, Tesla. So Tesla files a patent. There's Nikola Tesla. And his patent number 787-412 demonstrates that his transmitter traveled at his transmission on this transmitter traveled at 292,830 miles per second, which
Over
is
the speed.
the current speed of light 1 to the golden ratio.
Right.
So that establishes, and I could go into this really deeply, you know, to show people the actual math, but you don't need to see the math. Tolerance. So, I mean, there's measurements on the human skull done at Johns Hopkins University where you find the back node of the skull and the hole in your head, from the hole of the head to the brow of the nose, is 1 to 1.6 to 1.64 in most humans, which is golden ratio tolerance. That's why the accuracy on my chart doesn't have to be 100%, because if I measure my tip of my finger to my wrist and my wrist to my elbow and divide this into this, it's on mine, it's 1 to 1.58, which is 97% of the golden ratio. So when I demonstrate planets like Venus being 98% accurate to the precise golden ratio, that's golden ratio. There you have this little bit of tolerance. So the fact that Tesla, using a scalar wave, which again is generated, the way Tesla did it is he's doing a counter-rotational, waves impeding on each other, and the resulting scalar, which was called a Tesla wave in those days, it wasn't called a scalar, is going around 1.58 times the speed of light, which is golden ratio with tolerance, right? So what does that establish? It establishes that there are strata, because we know what caused the speed of light to go faster or slower. It's called the refractive index. So if I hold up a piece of quartz crystal, which I have right here, it will slow the speed of light down about 25%, right? And if I use copper, it'll slow it down even more. The speed of light in water is about just under 25% slower. Now, going the other way, the speed of light goes faster, as Tesla demonstrated. So if you have different strata, right, you have different speeds of light, so therefore frequency changes, because you measure frequency, the speed of light divided by the wavelength. So if the speed of light gets faster in our alternate other side of the mirror antimatter universe, time dilates in comparison to ours. And that's what physicist Richard Feynman said. He said in antimatter universe, time would be going in reverse compared to the way time goes in our universe and our
I
side
think
of the mirror.
we have some interesting questions I'd love for you to pose to my Venusians, and I can get some answers. I think this type of question they might answer for us. I'm going to give you one last little thing that the Pleiadians and Fred, and then we can maybe, if we have time, go back and do some more. I think Semyasi told Fred, you know, when we look at the Hindus, they call it's called the Day of Brahma, 12,000 years of light and 12,000 years of darkness. They kind of call that a frequency shift in the yugas and all that stuff. But Semyasi had told us that, I think she told Fred that we've done a recalculation, and the precession of the equinox now is 24,927.25 years. Now, I'm kind of curious. That was a new measurement. Maybe you could factor that in. 24,927.25 years, and I don't even know if that considers obviously that other constellation that Raymond also said, yes, the moon calendar is what we should really be on. And I don't know how we got switched on that. But anyway, so that kind of stuff.
Well, the precession of the equinoxes. Let me just show people this on the screen
Yeah.
so they get a visual.
Wow, you
The
got it all.
visuals are really helpful.
It's got all the images.
So it's on Wikipedia. It's due to the axial tilt.
Right.
So according to the tilt of the Earth, it will take just under 26,000 years for this circle to complete itself, to draw a circle in the heavens of that duration. So people can see this.
Yeah.
See this? This is your so if there's an adjustment, which would be even less than 25,000, then again, those are perturbations. They're also time dilation factors that modern physicists don't account for. And that those are variances in the speed of light. In fact, when the speed of light was originally measured in Irvine, California, in the famous tunnel with the scientist, Michelson Morway experiment guy, it was Michelson or I can't remember, one of the two, who measured the speed of light in a vacuum tunnel in Irvine, California, and they never got the exact same number every time.
Right.
So they had to, because light velocity was perturbating slightly, they didn't know what was causing it. Once again, they didn't know. So they had to give us, I would say, a very accurate approximation. But those perturbances change because we measure time.
Do you think that's due to the wobble?
Well, I'm saying that the way we measure the movement is by the speed of light. And as Tesla demonstrated, that he could demonstrate a radio wave going 1.6 times the speed of light. And notice when you convert miles to kilometers, it's a ratio of 1 to 1.6, which is the golden ratio. In fact, a study I did on the speed of sound in air and water is 1 to the golden ratio. It's very close. It's within my tolerance, right? My 97 to 99% tolerance. So when you see perturbances like that, and then if somebody is living on Venus, now remember, Venus backwards, Venus
Rotates
times the
backward.
golden ratio, gives us Earth time the golden ratio, gives us where my wife is, 591, which is a planet above the firmament or the other side of the membrane. And 591 is incredibly close to Mars. And I believe it was the original harmony of Mars and Theia, as modern astronomers have named Mars's twin, which has been destroyed. That is where the original harmony was. But after the war, now we get into the war, you get into the next generation of weapons, and which is antimatter weapons.
Right.
Remember in Star Trek, the fusion drive is generating anti-protons, antimatter to generate propulsion. And they now know that the greatest weapon, which would dwarf a nuclear weapon, would be an antimatter weapon, which could destroy a planet, like the Death Star in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Destroy a planet. So the question is, was there a war where the original harmony of Mars used to be at 591 orbits, and today Mars is at, we can see on my chart
I can
here.
tell you there was another
on my
planet.
share
It was
screen.
called Maldek, and it was much
Right.
larger. And as I said, I'm not clear, and it might be a question for the Venusians whether there was a war, but for some reason it did explode, and that is where Lucifer or Sataniel, that's when he came, was cast into the earth.
See, there you go. So Mars is at, I like what you're saying. Mars is at 68698 right now. So my percentage ratio, 591 divided by 686.98, because that's Mars's sidereal orbit. Right now, 591 is 86% of Mars's orbit. And that's still high. That's still considered harmonic, but they're off by 86. So you take 100 minus 86, and they're off by 14%, right? So if you were grading yourself on a paper and you didn't get 14% of 100, you're still pretty freaking smart. So you can see that 591 in Mars, most likely what Crystal is saying is the original harmony of the order was, remember, the goddess Venus gives birth to the goddess Harmony. and harmony is the symbol of harmony in Greek is phi, the golden ratio. So she has this instrument on her chest in this wedding feast that has circles within circles that plays the most perfect musical vibration of all instruments. And she says the secret to her instrument is, yeah, the Great Pyramid, of course, is phi, right? So therefore, we know time, if you were on Venus and you went through, I actually found the graphic which I wanted to show everybody this week of the spin of our planet. So let me go to that for a second. So you can see that Venus is spinning the other way.
Here's one of our
There.
devices. There's 144 pyramids in each one of these in a concentric Fibonacci spiral.
It's incredible. And I've experienced those. And if you set them upright with the lasers, see, it all makes sense now what Fred was doing.
Yeah.
So if you go to my chart on the direction of spin of the planets,
Right.
Sun is counterclockwise, Mercury is counterclockwise, Venus is clockwise. Earth is counterclockwise, Mars counterclockwise, Jupiter counter, Saturn counter. Uranus is the same as Venus in that it's clockwise, except that it's tilted at 98 degrees, which means its current it's out of the current. So it may not really be spinning the other way because it's tilted at 98 degrees. And Neptune, of course, is counter. So the planet Venus is spinning clockwise, which, again, if you compare this to the spin of electrons in an atom, basically, all our planets are spinning negative, which is counterclockwise, right? So most of the planets are counterclockwise. They're spinning the same direction as an electron. But a positron spins clockwise, hence positive. So Venus is positive. So therefore, it could be the portal to the other side. And again, if you look at my calculator, once again, for people who didn't see the last one, if you take a year of 365.256 minus 139.51 days for my mysterious planet, we get Venus. Venus is just under 225 days. So there's a double harmony of each other, right? You see how that works.
Yeah.
They're the inverse of Venus. Spinning the other way is the way to get to the other side, is what I'm saying. That's why we don't see the UFOs. We see them, it's like you're a fish and you're underwater. And suddenly someone drops a pebble and the fish sees it, but he didn't see the pebble coming. We don't see the UFOs coming and cruising from the outer solar system. They're suddenly here, they play around for a while, and they're gone.
Doing things,
And
but the Venusians could be seen. They do lower their vibration, and when you go on board, your consciousness is augmented. Dr. Frank Stranges, who went on repeatedly for meetings with the Venusians, he was a representative of the Earth, and with some other individuals that I know of personally, that go up and discuss meetings, and they have a world situation report with a holographic.
Oh yeah, I believe it. Oh, I totally believe it, because it's very easy to take you and put you on their ship and spin your electrons the other way, and you wouldn't even know. It would just be a blink of an eye.
He said he could take his glasses off when he would go on board. He could.
Oh, people could touch Jesus's body physically in his new. The reason I believe it was an antimatter body is because the image of Christ burns into the linen fiber on the resurrection.
Mhm.
That's exactly what happens when antimatter meets ordinary matter. They radiate off, they annihilate and radiate off gamma radiation, which is the hottest radiation there is. And it would burn a hole in the linen fibers. His new body now consumed his opposite body, which died on the cross, but his new body, now the electrons spin the other way, is physical. And there would probably be some sort of energetic membrane that would allow him to touch people, and they could physically sense him physically. Notice when most people die, you can't, if they appear to you in your room, as my wife has done, I can put my hand right through her. I can't touch her because there's no antimatter body there. yet.
Wonderful. That's you have such amazing psychic experiences, and you actually bring this meta or beyond physics, metaphysics information into reality on the physical plane. It's amazing, and I'm really appreciating this conversation. I want to share real quick with you, just so you can see. This is Fred Bell's from his book here. So this is where his house
Oh,
was
yeah.
up on a hill here. He had a system in his house that I built, and there were crystals in here. And I was beamed down here with the Pleiades at one point. But you can see here this is the blood. This is a heme chain of two pyramids, base to base, with the heme chains off. That is the ferrous and ferric exchange of the oxygen in the blood that is so important for the negative ions. And I wanted to share this one. Then I want to get into the X1 healing and get uh, uh, your thoughts on this. And for some, there it is. So this is what we're talking about when we see Dan Winter's fractal wave. This is called the Anu, the ultimate physical atom. Each plane is divided into 7 levels of physical: is solid, liquid, gas, ionic, or earth, air, water, and fire. And of course, what we would call the first, second, and third ethers. Uh, and the astral plane contains, in each electron of the physical plane atoms that we see, contains 49 of the astral plane what atoms. Okay, and if you're on the astral plane, if you were to look into their electrons, you would see 49 and all the way up until you get to the logoic or divine plane. So this was one of the Fred's more advanced dissertations on that. I wanted to.
You see how he has the double vortex everywhere? I can see his double helix, double vortex.
Yeah, we got. Well, this is the. This is a. See, I got to get this to open up. It doesn't like to do it sometimes through the Zoom, but
That's the secret of how Tesla generated the fast 1 to 1.618 radio wave.
So here is his. They had given him, the Pleiades gave him a technology that would accelerate the mass of the ship, and it would disappear from the physical plane, or I guess you would call it, what you would call the matter, into the antimatter or the astral plane. And there, time and space doesn't exist, and they would literally, a beam ship jumps. What they do is that the top of the bottom of the ship has they take a picture of the universe, where all the stars are, and it's all mapped out. They all have these maps of the portals and everything, and they jump. They literally dematerialize here. They appear somewhere else, and then they go through a portal, and then they would jump like this. That's what the beam ship is.
It makes so much sense what you're saying if I compare it to the model of antimatter, which I'll show in a minute.
So this is the devices that I sell. This is the old style Pleiadian technology. We have crystals here and these lasers coming down, which you experienced, of course, at Fred's house. But so these are the scalar waves here, and of course, the jewelry I'm wearing actually does the same thing for the body.
Or you're still able to manufacture Fred's
Oh yeah,
technology?
I have the patent. I own the rights to it with one of his daughters.
Oh, that's good that it's still, people are still able to get it. That's incredible.
Right. And then we use a master crystal. I have one here. And then, here, this one I wanted to show you was the X1 healing machine. So this is a single cathode ray tube that Fred
Yep.
had. This is the device, the cathode ray tube here. And he had broken it down, you see, into these sub frequencies. There's each of these tubes. This is the X1 healing machine that he told you about. This is one tube.
Yep.
There's a threefold scalar. I don't understand this. I would just say, let's get it out. He said we can get it out.
Well, you said send that to me and I'll study it because, I know how to actually build stuff. I mean, you can still buy cathode ray tubes on eBay, and there's not a lot of them left. I mean, to get your hands on.
This is the type of thing that we can do in the future. So here is the X1 healing machine. And I'll just show you the trapezoidal waveform. This is similar to what I developed, but this has to be powered by the human consciousness with crystals. This is a mixing chamber. And we got photographs at UCLA through Thelma Moss when we activate these with the Tesla coil. We connect these and this creates a huge scalar wave, but it's controlled by the person. Now, this is the device he had in his house when I first met him in 1974.
Wow,
This
you
was
met Fred in 1974. Wow.
yeah, I was a young kid. So this is the device, the X1 healing machine. This is kind of based on Venusian and Pleiadian technology. And this device here would start off, the problem we would have is there's different combinations of noble gases. David Adair might be able to help us sort this out. But what this device would do was it would play a sound, a light, and a radiate a frequency. It would go like each person, you put your hand over an auric reader. It would read your aura, get your DNA understanding, and would go back and to the most optimal point of your body's health, and it would your body would reform actually in a magical way. It would recalibrate the DNA, and you'd get younger. And it would go like this. He said it would start really slow. It would go. It would take you through the sounds, whatever the ketones are of your sounds. And I want to see if I can find the little image.
Do you have one of those left over from? Did you get the remainder of Fred's technology physically in your possession?
No, when he died, unfortunately, he was in a bad relationship, and that woman forged his signature, took over his house. So when we went in to try and gather his belongings and all of his papers, she did a money grab. He had a lot of cars, race cars, and he was into trains. He had probably over $100,000 in the storage, and she took the safe. And anyway, it's done. It's over. So this is the thing. And what he told me here, so you have the different frequencies in the sound notes of the
Yeah, he's
different
got
notes
an
that would go
A,
through,
so his A would probably be 432, I would suppose.
probably. So this would read the aura. And what he claimed was that the Great Pyramid of Giza, this was an initiation chamber where the human would lie down in the tub, a pH balance, and that would go over the person, and you would reestablish the divine soul connection. So we see here the precession of the equinox and relationship to the period. And this is an incredible book that Fred put together.
You know what's amazing is, and the same thing happened to Pythagoras, it happened to Archimedes. They're so brilliant at the end of their life, these scientists. And then if nobody can understand what they left behind, it's lost. And
I know.
this work, every diagram I'm looking at, I understand, and I'm going, this is a massive loss to not have millions of dollars to rebuild all this and put it in a healing center. And that's the problem with that Jesus told me in one of the meetings when he appeared to me, is the money people were supposed to get together with the idea people, the inventors, and change the world. But the money people just went off and partied, right, with all their money. And they didn't realize the reason God made them rich is they were going to change the world, and they forget.
Well,
They get
that's where Kim Gogan comes in, and where you will see the fruition, and you will have the money. I believe that strongly. So this is Fred. You've seen the Tibetans; they blow their horns, right? And we see they can move rocks, literally. The Tibetan, and a rock moves. There's a levitation sound. It can move
yeah, of
things.
course, yeah, I
This
understand.
was Fred's idea. This is back in the late 80s, where we're using D50 synthesizers. He wanted to stack them and use them this is his anti-gravity generator. I think I'm just going to send you the book. I will need your address. I did send you the
Oh, is this a physical book?
This is a physical book. Yeah. I've
Yeah,
got
yeah,
that. It's
yeah.
called
I mean, again, Fred would probably want me to have it. Like, I can tell you this
I know I want you to have
from
it.
experience, there's very few people that know how to actually build stuff. I mean, Dan Winter is a mathematical genius, but he's not a builder. Fred was a builder and a genius. You know, I've been building stuff for over 20 years, and I was director of Tesla Foundation in Los Angeles, appointed by an MIT PhD, Bogdan Maglich. So I see the way Tesla built coils, and I see how I build coils is more advanced, but at the same time, you have three elements of a transmitter that are very important. One is noble gases, and two is what the coil inside of the gas tube is made out of on the periodic table, and three are your gems. And the power of gems, it has been discovered by major physicists, such as we use rubies and sapphires in masers, right? In microwave masers. So you can see the classic way to excite electrons with noble gases in tubes. And then we got away from that when we went into solid state electronics. And so when you look at the way people build stuff, you have to look at your emitter. You got to look at what it's made out of, whether it's trapping and densing and condensing. For example, a magnetron, which generates microwaves for radar detection and baking a potato, is a box with a tungsten emitter inside that is making the wave not escape and become very, very dense. So a microwave is really a very dense radio wave. Without the box, it doesn't become dense.
David Adair said that he was involved in the development of that, and for the astronauts, that was a space technology that came to the public. They were trying to eat warm food, so they utilize that. I want to share this.
Yeah, they use the magnetron. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean, I've taken magnetrons apart. I've seen how they're made. I threw my back out a few days ago.
I want to share this one image here. So this is the variation 3 type beam ship that would come over, and this is a vortex. You can't see, it's a bad reproduction.
No, I see that. I see that really well.
But this is Fred's house was here, so they'd come over the house late at night, and this is when they were taking me out of my body, and they were utilizing the pyramid systems. They had one particular night. He called me up, and he said, "Rob, you got to come up to the temple tonight. We have some important work to do." And I didn't. He didn't always tell me everything on a metaphysical level, but I was working with these dorjis. I was in meditation, and I was doing certain breathing exercises in the Kriya Yoga, and it was a very powerful night. Whatever the ship was doing above me, I was feeling stuff, and um, and I knew he told me that we were working on a vortex. You know, people do transmissions and different things. The light people gather in meditation and sacred sites for the human ground crew to dissipate and to put the frequencies into Earth to uplift the Earth. That's what divine intervention is people coming together, utilizing these pyramid technologies, the jewelry, the standalone projector, and all these different devices that Fred created were meant for healing of the planet.
Oh, let me see that standalone projector again. Let me see that.
So Fred, and then we have the other side too, which is a Cassegrain wave trap. It's
Right.
kind of like a yin yang symbol. But I called Fred up because the Northridge earthquake took place, and it was early in the morning. It was a very large earthquake, 7 something, I think. And I called Fred up. I said, did we do that? And he said, that's why you came up. He said, we made it so it wouldn't be as big. We were releasing something. And I don't know how these pyramids and crystals do it, but they were in conjunction with amplification from the spaceship. I haven't ever really talked about that. I don't think anyone even grasped or believed what I said, but I'm sharing that with you and our audience now. that that's what these technologies do. Sandra Michael recently had purchased and bought an entire system with the Omnion and these other technologies. I'll just share with you real quick here. This is a grounding device. This is called a store arm by the Pleiadians. It's floating ground. There's no electrical to it. This is the ion shower that has 50 kV of technology, and then that's a smaller one for a single house. And then this bad boy is the Omnion I created, and unfortunately, that thing was so heavy. That thing would sit here up there, and it raises and lowers over my master crystal. And this is like a capacitor. So it acts with the cycles of the moon, and in conjunction, when you lie down, it can accelerate your manifestation. So I just wanted to share that a little bit, and with the Fred's technology, and I really appreciate your knowledge. So I am going to send you that book, Raise Your Truth Crystals of Light. And I know you probably have to go pretty soon, but I would like to share with you your website, or maybe you want to pull it
Yeah,
up.
I'll pull.
And you can share some of your technologies. Ladies and gentlemen, if David Adair's technology and Fred's technology, and we can get Dan Winter's technology, using the highest scientists, and we can collaborate. I spoke with David last time privately, as I mentioned, and we're all for collaboration. We want the healing of the planet and the healing of the people. And if we can combine these things, there'll be enough of the financial rewards, which everyone's trying to hold on, including Fred, to keep his proprietary information. But when the financial system shifts, as ground command gets control and people start to awaken to the power of working together, we're going to be able to take David's technology, Fred's technology, and we will get our advanced medbed technology type healing devices to open up a whole new level of happiness for humanity. So David, take us away into your wonderful technology that you'd like to share, and maybe relate it to that X1 healing machine. The final thing I'll say is he said in the Great Pyramid, the initiate would go in there, they'd use this technology, it would go over him, and it would connect him and reestablish a soul contact.
Okay, so let me just go to Zoom, share screen, and go to my site. Okay, so like I said, what makes my technology different than most is I got away from noble gases in my emitters and I got into gems. I was very impressed by the power. If you pulse gems, you will see the field of the gem envelop the person. This was my very first product. We built the coil with the gem core into a regular flashlight. And when you see the gems on my products, they're not just to be there because they're pretty, because they're in the strong part of the magnetic field. When, due to what's called piezoelectricity, when you pulse gems, they emit. So we have lab-grown rubies and sapphires on the face. The actual face is a quartz crystal face. This diagram here on the far right shows the core, which is, you can see number 7 here, is real tourmaline crystal. And the electrode passes through the tourmaline, so it's less than a millimeter away from it. And as it's pulsing the tourmaline field enters the room.
Is this a natural tourmaline that you're?
Oh yeah, it's a real tourmaline.
I mean,
so
are you faceting it or engineering it? Like,
no, we have to drill it out to pass the wire through it.
Okay.
And then it gets wrapped I mean, we show people how these are made. I mean, if somebody tried to make one of these, like if you look at these wands that are out there today and you take them apart, it's just a hair dryer with a glass tube that they claim is tourmaline. It is not tourmaline. It's a glass tube with some minerals torched on the side of it.
Right.
This is real tourmaline. And a lab-grown ruby under a microscope is a ruby. a real ruby at 10 millimeters would cost you at least $30,000.
I know, I know. And
So these wands are all of my emitter, systems are incorporate crystals and gems for a reason. And each crystal and each type of gem has a different function, right? So you can see in this test we did here on the left, this was on 7 women in Sedona, Arizona. Before a wand session and after.
let me explain this real quick, folks. So what he's doing here is the women place their fingers on a Carillion plate. So I don't think there's an actual aura of the whole human. It's a
No, I don't either. I think it's just the galvanic. It's the electrical part of the human. It's not the aura.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Okay.
So, but what's interesting is with sound healing sessions, with this technique, the GDV galvanic skin response test, you would see an improved aura, more balanced with sound, but only an hour later they would go back to their baseline. What was different about my technology is we tested these 7 women 3 days later and a week later, and they were still higher than their baseline, which means it made sense because when you used pulse gem emitters, the field activates the bone in the body, which is a crystal, because it's a calcium crystal, and the other minerals in the bones like phosphorus and magnesium, etc., are now transformed by the frequency. So your core crystal structure gets transformed by my technology, whereas with sound, it does, but it's very momentarily improved. So we have these standing quartz ones. Now these quartz ones, and I have one right behind me, this is real lab-grown quartz crystal tubing. So the photons, the light pulses through it as well as the magnetic wave at the same time. So again, you have living gems. So any gem that I attach to my emitter will get piezoelectricity pulsed emitting into the field. Now, all of my devices, my coils, same, we actually put gems in magnets on the top of the screws here because we use steel, and they're 14-pointed stars, just like the 14-pointed star at the birthplace of Christ, which there's a reason for the 14, which I don't have time to get into right now. So we have our counter-rotational 14-pointed star cubes, so which means they generate a scalar function, counter-rotational. So you can put DNA samples, pictures of anybody you want can go into the cube, and it will send that person healing energy at a distance through the quantum function of action at a distance. Here you can see rubies on the top of the magnets on the left here. Again, they will vibrate physically in the device as well as magnetically. So when you can switch gems, like on my cube back here, I've got sapphires, alexandrites, topaz, ruby on the one back here. You can take the magnets and set any type of faceted gem you want in there. So my bed systems are the same. The bed, of course, you're laying on 4 coils. I only use natural materials in my coils, and that's because when an energy wave goes through a material, and you really understand that at an energetic level, materials matter. So if you're laying on a rubber mat and it's pulsing frequencies, you're getting the chemical vibration of the rubber in the body. You don't want to do that. So you see a lot of these cheaper companies will give you rubber mats. Don't use them because you're going to get toxic vibrations in the body. Now, let me go back here for a minute. Why do I use aluminum, copper, and people can use plexi, which is carbon for the base. Because everything in the periodic table falls into 3 categories of magnetism: Copper is diamagnetic, so it creates like a force field of protection. Aluminum is paramagnetic. The air that we breathe, which is nitrogen and oxygen, nitrogen are paramagnetic, oxygen, one of them is diamagnetic and one of them is paramagnetic. So the pairing of diamagnetism to paramagnetism matters. But my coils have 3 types of magnetism because I'm winding on steel bobbins. Steel, iron, is ferromagnetic. And ferromagnetic, diamagnetism, and paramagnetism are the 3 main forms of magnetism of everything on the Earth, even though there's something called anti-ferromagnetism, which is very, very rare. You want all 3 because they balance each other out. So if I was using aluminum by itself, it would be no good. But when you pair aluminum with copper, you have diamagnetism and paramagnetism and ferromagnetism in the steel bolts. And there's a huge reason for that. So when I go to my beds, I'm using, for the level 1 and 2 beds, I'm using a cotton canvas liner for a reason. You don't want to use rubber. But in my most advanced bed, which is over here, it's hard to see that one, Shros, is my new bed is on an aluminum base with the copper, which is a level 3 bed. Shros, for some reason, I can't see the level 3 bed here. It's invisible. So my cubes are, you see the cube flashing there?
Huh?
With my quartz wand, you really feel this because you're getting the light wave and you're getting the magnetic wave and you're getting the 3 types of, why the 3 types of magnetism matter? Because every element in your body is one of those 3. We have all the elements on the periodic table in our bodies. We have everything. We even have a tiny bit of uranium.
Are those diode lasers or is that regular light?
No, those lights are going through the quartz. So when Raymond Chow at Berkeley, a physicist that I knew, I got to actually speak to him, did his famous experiment when he got intense light going through quartz, it generated tachyons. So the way you generate tachyon energy is intense light pulsed
Wow.
going through real quartz. So my tube up here is lab-grown quartz, and that's expensive stuff, right? Nobody else uses this, right? Nobody else is using this. So when the light enters, the green light or the blue light in the center of the 2 coils enters the magnetic field, you have differential speeds of light. You have differential speeds of light because in the copper, I'm slower than the speed of light. In the green, I'm each color in the speed of light is a tiny difference at the speed of light. So when you get a rainbow, when light goes through water, but due to the refractive index, each color is slightly behind or ahead of each other, so you get a rainbow. If they were all the exact same speed, you wouldn't get a rainbow.
We used to do that with
So
white light lasers. So I'm shooting a green laser. This is part of our.
yeah, so if it's pulsed and it's intense enough, you'll generate a little bit of tachyon energy, but you want to pulse it. So by using the frequencies with the light, of course, this is a low-res video. You should see what this is like.
Yeah.
You feel this in your brain. It's like you're getting a brain massage. It's actually very blissful. And that's part of the healing response to activate the neurotransmitter and neurochemicals in the nervous system to promote healing and therapeutic enjoyment. And you really, it's very enjoyable when you're experiencing this physically. So then my staffs, which are based on the biblical measurements in Mark 6:1-8, before Jesus disperses the disciples, he tells them no money, no bread, no copper, just your staff. So he places utmost importance on the staff. The staff weigh in the Ark of the Covenant at 2.5 biblical cubits. So you have to know what a biblical cubit is. So all my staffs are 2.5 cubit staffs. And again, they plug into a high frequency source. These are quite expensive because they're handmade in Sedona. I designed all these myself with an amazing jeweler. So we have different levels of staffs. they plug into a high frequency source. So they start at $3,000 and they go all the way up depending on the gems. These are solid silver parts, like Fred Bell uses real gold and real silver. And again, when I meditate with my scepter over here, I tell you what it feels like.
Which one do you have?
I have a staff and a scepter.
You have one in gold?
And no, I can't afford
Me
gold even
either.
myself. I'm raising kids. They take up all my money. I have the silver one over here, and when you hold it, it's 1 cubit high, but it's a proper cubit. Nobody would know this cubit. It's tuned to 144 megahertz, and 144 goes into 432 megahertz 3 times, right? So they're 1-to-3 ratio. I'm about to come out with the 432 megahertz scepter, which is only this big. It's even smaller. So you have a 2.5 cubit staff, which is way up here, and then you have a 1 cubit scepter staff, and then you have a 432. So the breastplate of Aaron, actually, the wavelength of the square of the breastplate of Aaron is 432 megahertz. I did the math, and that is absolutely true.
Wow.
Those,
We got to get you talking with Raymond because he wore it when he was
oh yeah, that's 432 megahertz. It's a 432 megahertz square wave. So again, notice the breastplate of Aaron is 432 megahertz, but it has 12 gems because the gems combined create the rainbow spectrum light wave and put it into the person's energy field, which is why I use gems.
Wow.
So very different than most people's PMF devices, but these are high frequency, so they connect into, in fact, this staff here is just, that's my staff there on the left. You see that it's got a huge ametrine on the top. That's actually mine. So you can see these studies done in the Great Pyramid of Egypt here using special cameras. These German and Russian physicists transmitted wavelengths into the Great Pyramid, and you can see, and I know these frequencies that are going into the pyramid are the same frequencies that come out of my staffs. I couldn't believe it when I did the math, but you can see the Maltese cross appears, and then the shape of the divine ascended person appears when the wavelength is getting near 200 meters, right? So your wavelength is getting shorter, your frequency is getting higher.
Were photographs from inside the Great Pyramid or?
No, from outside the pyramid. So they were done. I have a whole copy of the study. It was published in Nature magazine, top physics science journal.
Wow.
And they beamed frequencies from 4 angles at the pyramid at these wavelengths, and the pyramid started emitting light that was photographed, I think in the infrared spectrum, because light is heat.
Yeah.
And it created these geometries. So you have your Maltese cross turning into the divine ascended person. And of course, Jesus refers to himself as the missing capstone in the scriptures. So these staffs, again, they're all at different levels. And I've had, these are the frequency generators they plug into, and we train people how to use them. They literally, I'll tell you an experience I had. This is mind-blowing. I'm holding my staff because in the middle of the night, I live on 2 acres in Nelson, British Columbia, and I ran out of firewood. It was Christmas time. And I'm kind of joking around. I'm holding up my staff and I'm looking uphill, and I said, God, I need firewood. Then in the middle of the night, I hear a crash in the forest, no windstorm.
Wow.
And I go up there with my kids. I have video of this. And a tree fell right towards my staff. It's like it was bowing down to the direction of my staff. And I got my chainsaw in the snow and I chopped it up and I brought it down in a sled and I had firewood. Now, in Easter, I ran out of wood again. I did the same thing, and my daughter and I were in the garden. It didn't happen right away, right? It's not like the parting of the Red Sea.
Yea, and lo unto thee, let there be wood.
The freaking tree, my daughter and I hear a crash at Easter. This is Easter. And I go up there again. Another tree fell right. It's not falling. They're falling towards where my staff is in the house.
And you got 2 cords of wood right there, at least.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I've had so many experiences with the staff at high frequency. With this scepter, at 144 megahertz, the bliss factor in my crown chakra goes up several notches every time when I'm meditating. I pick it up, I set it on my knee, and I go, oh my God, I'm so blissed out, I can barely handle the ecstasy. And then I set it down, and then I come down a bit. Then I pick it up, and then I go up again. So when you see those Egyptian inscriptions carved in the walls of the tombs of Isis, Hathor, and Osiris with their staffs, and you see Jesus in Mark 6:1-8 telling the disciples, no money, no bread, just your staff. There's a reason for it. Because what happened, this is the last thing I'll say about the staff, is when my wife died, the sound of her voice was coming from the staff. It sounded like an AM bad, scratchy radio station. I hear David, and it's all scratchy. And I'm like, it's coming from the staff. And you got to remember, when God told Moses to put a copper serpent, that's the symbol of a coil on a pole. That's Tesla's father was an Orthodox minister in the Orthodox Church, where they celebrate Christmas on January 6th and the 7th. Tesla obviously read the Bible, and he put a copper wire on a pole, and he created the first radio. That was the first radio, was a copper coil on a pole.
Amazing.
I mean, go figure, he read the Bible and invented radio. Were
you able to, did you have your visual with your wife at that time? Or was the first one just?
Yeah, I've seen my mom appeared. My mom appeared. This was stunning. Almost just under 3 years after she died. She died on a September 13th, which is in alignment with the planet Saturn in my new harmonic astrology system based on my chart, which is a different type of astrology. I physically saw her, and she was right near my staff. I woke up. There's my mom. She looked 20 years old again. And the funny thing is, my mom in the 60s would dye her hair blonde. But when I saw her, her hair was her natural color, brown. And she sat down on the bed, and the bed went down, and she's within a radius of 5 feet of my staff. So again, why did Jesus, when he's about to be crucified and resurrected, he made sure they had their staffs so they could communicate with him in the afterlife? So I think one of the functions of the staff is not only tuning the human instrument and keeping you tuned, because the frequency of an antenna, so you take the height of an antenna times 4 is the wavelength that a monopole antenna gives off. So guess what? A 2.5 cubit staff would have a wavelength of 10 long cubits, which are royal cubits.
Same size as the Queen's chamber.
Same size as the Queen's chamber. And the dimension of the King's chamber is 10 cubits by 20 cubits, which is an octave, because times 2 is an octave. So you start to see how it works.
One of the things about the Great Pyramid, it was built 13,500 years ago by Anunnaki, and mostly human Anunnaki hybrids with the technology. But according to the Venusians, there is a technology above there that those roofs actually used to change in capacitance with the Earth's rotation, and the Grand Gallery had all these crystals that were tuned to which they actually had in the pyramid. It was a type of energy generator that was using a different technology. I want to give a little plug here for David. Ladies and gentlemen, I thought tooling up for these jewelry pieces, 144 pyramids, that I feel bliss with these two in the sense that they protect.
Oh, it's 144 pyramids?
Yeah, there's 144 pyramids, concentric Fibonacci.
Well, do you see what I mean? The 1 cubit, if it's the correct cubit, if you take the height times 4 and the speed of light in inches divided by that is 144 megahertz.
This actually works at this has a frequency that the parabolic dish is at the frequency. I think it's at one of the main DNA.
Well, yeah, a parabolic dish, just so you know, whatever the circumference of the dish is the outer wavelength. The beauty of a dish is is you can have higher and higher frequencies bounce off the dish into smaller and smaller wavelengths. That's why a dish is so brilliant. It has a huge frequency range, whereas an antenna it has a little bit of tolerance, like 432 megahertz antenna is about as tall as the base of my hand and my finger, almost exactly. I'm almost exactly 432 megahertz to here. So the breastplate of Aaron was this size, if you do the math. And therefore, what that means is that keeping a person's nervous system tuned to the 144 and the 432 tunes you into what I'm experiencing, the very, very serious levels of bliss, which is the God frequency, the God vibration.
One of the things I want to say, everything David's talking about, he's always going back to the Fibonacci spirit and the golden ratio. The base divided by the height of the pyramid, the keystone of modern mathematics, is the pi. That's what this is all about. This is nature. This is God's frequency. This frequency is specifically tuned to the DNA of the human, where the replication takes place. When that ladder unwinds, it sends out a scalar wave and brings nutrients from your body to duplicate itself. The other one does the same thing, and then eventually that's how your body creates. So this acts as a battery charger. This is why I can have you breathe airplane glue and muscle test. First, I test you. How strong are you? Oh, you get a little weak. I give you airplane glue, breathe it, you go down. You wear one of these, you stay strong. So this is the frequency that is given by the Pleiadians on Christmas Eve. And Fred came down and called me up on Christmas Day. He said, I got designed for this. We couldn't even get a jeweler to make it till 1980. And now with 3D printing, it's very high quality. David's technology, ladies and gentlemen, when I look at his site, I just go, oh my God. If I got the lottery, there would be no lottery curse for me. I would spend it on David's technology. I would ramp up my stuff. And this stuff is expensive, but it's quality. Did you see the workmanship in his items there?
Yeah, it's not free to make this stuff, people. Watch this. It's going to blow your mind what I'm going to show you right now,
Yeah,
which is
this
a
is
photograph of real DNA with the angle of the DNA in my protractor.
Oh,
It's great pyramid angle, 51 degrees, 51.
there you go, right?
That's human DNA on my protractor with a photograph. You see the angle, the slope angle on the DNA? I'm measuring it from this side is my base, and then I have to turn it sideways, and it's pyramid angle. So how could that be, right? That pyramid angle, and what creates pyramid angle, if I make a golden rectangle, so side A
Right.
times 1.618 is the base side. I draw a line in the middle and I make a pyramid, my corners will be pyramid angle. So your DNA is pyramid angle, people. I mean, so when the last thing I'll say today is all those microwave towers transmitting all that data from cell phone and internet is totally, if they did it at the right frequency, we would all be feeling better. It's all at the wrong frequency. So by keeping your house tuned, by keeping your body tuned regularly, doing, regular sessions, 15 minutes a day is all it takes. Your DNA, your nervous system will be calibrated correctly every day. And the consciousness, it's not all about supposedly curing cancer or whatever. It's about what you experience in your energy field every day matters way more than somebody who's claiming to cure cancer in 3 days. I mean, it's about, can you feel bliss? Can you feel the love frequency? Can you have telepathic experiences? Can you have out-of-body experiences with ascended masters? To me, that matters more than anything. Because once you cut the human race off from the heavens above by scattering their nervous system with all these disharmonic microwave towers, they're not going to be able to think anything.
Absolutely. And so, ladies and gentlemen, he's actually exposed another can of worms here. Those microwave towers were made and intended for that. That was the real cause of the thing that everyone talked about that you got.
It's 1:44 p.m. right now.
But
Pacific time.
there we go. Look at that. So
144, and you just talked about 144. I just talked about 144 megahertz. It's 1:44 p.m.
that's amazing. So I'm gonna finish this off with one other a point here that you know, these technologies are expensive, but they're very powerful. Like I said, I wouldn't have a lottery curse. I would spend it on this technology. So um, one of the final things is I think we do need to get all of these technologies working together and get people to understand. Another final little thing, if you looked at the DNA from the top down, ladies and gentlemen, that is the flower of life. The flower of life of Drumvelo Melchizedek, that image in Egypt is on there. And I wanted to ask you one question. I noticed you had a picture. I was in there. It's on your website. It's only a sliver of it. But I was in that chamber there in Egypt where they have the cathode ray tube and it looks like a little snake as their emitter. That's a cathode ray tube. Do you believe that
Yeah,
was
I don't
light?
believe it's a light bulb because
I think it's
a
scalar.
light bulb that size, and you see the little tiny people under the giants who
Yeah.
are holding the tubes, and the
Yeah.
little people have breasts, so those aren't kids, those are humans. And
Yeah.
I actually am trying to get the exact angle that the tubes are placed at, and I can only do that not from a photograph with a wide angle lens because it distorts. I mean, I like to be accurate to at least 2 decimals, so I'm going to have to go there to get the angle because nobody's done it. But that is not a light bulb. That is an emitter, which is like a wand that is probably activating the great or crystal core of the Great Pyramid as a frequency sloped tuner. And a slope tuner, again, I've measured all the frequencies in the square wavelength base from the base of the pyramid all the way to the capstone base. So I know all their frequencies. And that image I showed you in the study that the German and Russian physicists did when they hit the Great Pyramid with these frequencies and caused the stone to resonate, those frequencies are in the Great Pyramid itself. They're actually in there.
Oh yeah.
There's a whole scale, right? Because as you go up, the wavelength gets shorter, the frequency is higher, and as you come down, wavelength gets longer in the square wave and the frequency is lower. I have all those frequencies that people use with my systems.
Fred Bell told me that inside the Great Pyramid, there are different chambers based on the chakras, and there are secret rooms in there. Dr. Frank Strange's went with Valiant Thor in the Great Pyramid, and there is inside there or near there, there's a spaceship that Jesus ascended in, and it has the cross, and that will be revealed at some point in the future. What a wonderful conversation! I'm very excited. We have to hear your support and you to break down my technology and me to be able to support yours and bring Fred Bell
Yeah,
and you to
I really love Fred Bell's work. I mean, he's one of very few that I'm really impressed with. I mean, there's not very many people that know how to actually make stuff. There's a lot of good theorists out there, but Fred knew how to really build stuff, and that's very impressive.
Oh, he's an engineer. He bought one of these photocopiers once, and it was going on the fritz. The guy came in 3 times, and then Fred called me. He goes, "Rob, I need you up here." I get up there, and he's just cussing like a son of a. The guy couldn't fix it, so Fred got into this brand new Xerox multi-level, you know, behemoth, not like we have today, but it was like a double-sided printer and all this stuff. And he was just cussing the whole time. Hand me this, and he got in there and he fixed and adjusted this thing. His engineering mind. I saw physicists challenge him. They'd ask him questions, and then he'd ask them a question, and they couldn't answer, and they'd sit down. So it's wonderful that this technology will be saved with people like you and other Fred Bells and David Adair's and other people. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah.
Rob Potter from the promiserevealed.net and David Sereda, as his grandmother said,
Yeah.
and .co. So check out our websites. I'll see you in Mount Shasta this summer, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you all. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Shiraz, thank you so much.
Now, it never made sense to me. How could the speed of light be exactly 186,282 miles per second instead of point something miles it ends at the 2,
Right.
186,282, instead of 182 point something.
So Crystal, how did you know that?
I just knew instinctually, you know, when you work from your center a lot, you just have feelings about or knowings, not even
Absolutely.
feelings.
Yeah.
It was just a knowing
Yeah.
that it was off and it wasn't precise enough. And sure enough, when he decodes things, he gets down to
Well,
the exact decimal of everything.
I looked into the early Michelson-Morley experiments, which were done in Irvine, California, in this tunnel,
Right.
when they were trying to define the speed of light as an absolute measurement.